Good evening, my friend. How you doing? You're a press TV reporter, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got our independent channel as well. Would you much mind making a few comments on the observation today of today's march and
I
what
would
do you?
love to talk to you. Oh, you want to talk to me? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. I
if
thought
that's
you were gonna.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your TV representing? What views do you hold in terms of the events that are occurring in the Middle East currently?
Well, the view is again the same as the view of the people who have gathered here this evening. That there has to be an immediate end to the hostilities, to what it could be best described as a genocide. That's what happened against the Palestinians over the
Okay.
past month or so. It has to stop.
Has to stop.
And as we all know, 76% of Britons have voted for an immediate ceasefire, and that has to be reflected by the representatives inside the building to our right this evening. So we're yet to see if that will actually happen.
I mean, we're all hopeful because if there was some pressure put on the fact that Suella Braverman seemed to be ignoring the masses, but it rebounded on her. So the expectation is that often people are of the view that protests don't have any singular results to them. But we've seen some things can really materialise, and if the public opinion becomes more and more ubiquitous, then we're of an opportunity that things can actually change. And not just in terms of the genocide, we need to look at a resolution which will immediately look forward to cessation of all hostilities, and furthermore to that, a resolution to this central issue. The land which the Palestinians have unfortunately had seized from them over a 75-year period. Would you agree with those sentiments that just say for example, the pre-67 borders, they should be returned to the Palestinian people, the West Bank and the Gaza? What are your views?
You covered a lot of bases there, but again, I agree with pretty much everything you said. The solution has to be political. There's no military solution to this conflict. It's not even a conflict. This is so unequal and uneven, given all the support one party has against the other party, who has some very basic means of defending themselves. And so, as we have seen over the past 75 years, violence has only given rise to more violence. What we've got to see is political solution, and if both parties are really up for peace, then they will have to abide by international resolutions, UN resolutions, which means the end to the occupation and the siege and blockade and the dismantling and destruction of all the illegal settlements. And then, we'll see what happens, because that's, as long as those are ongoing, why would there be peace?
Absolutely, these are fundamental points which you superbly observed. I mean, the fact they're dithering on simply, coming forward to call for a ceasefire leads us to believe perhaps a resolution could be quite a lengthy process. And we don't want that. We want some resolution now for them. This has been continued for far too long. As I'm sure you're aware of the 1993 Oslo Accords, similar process took place where there were discussions going to be done about discussions. We never reached any solution. So hence there is always the party which is in the inferior position will be looking to get what is rightfully theirs. This is without dispute occupied land to which the Palestinians are recognized by international law, the UN resolutions of 242 and 338, illegally occupied land, which is a prerequisite that is returned, then talks can be pursued. The bastions of our democracies are very much akin to speaking of international law and order. Well, there is your law and order. The same entities who went to Iraq during the First and Second Iraq War provided the UN resolutions, and then these same resolutions are now being flagrantly ignored. What would you say to a lot of people, Muslims, non-Muslims, are really, frustrated about the lack of empathy being shown by the decision makers, by the powers that be?
I talked to someone at the start of this flare-up, if you will, and people were exposed to a lot of propaganda and different right-wing mainstream media and press, and so they were obviously outraged at what had happened without looking deeper at what may have caused the problem. But despite all of that, things seem to have changed, because the public opinion has turned in favor of Palestinians, as far as I can tell from you know, looking at social media postings, people coming onto the streets, not just in the UK, but across the world.
Yeah, I think that's.
But I want to touch on something else. First of all, people power really works as long as people are united and keep their ear to the ground, so to speak. But then we know that the UK has that quote-unquote special relationship with the US, and
Yes.
the US is the biggest backer of Israel in terms of military aid, diplomatic aid at the United Nations, vetoing resolutions and all of that. So I think change has to happen there also for the rest of the Western world to follow suit, because that's where they seem to get their cue, so to speak.
I think a lot of the Muslim world is like certain that US will never give any form of justice due to many nominal reasons. I think people don't seem to overlook that the decision makers in the US, they're very much perpetuated by their Christian beliefs as well. That, for example, Christians believe that it's
940 on me!
Christians believe that the return of Christ has to be precipitated by the Jews, that they have to be in Zion. The Jews have to be in Israel in order to perpetuate the return of Christ. And this is a very interesting point. A lot of people are not really observant of this, but it's more so than even unilateral support for Israel. These are some of the other reasons which are overlooked. This religious far right, the evangelicals in the United States, they really are supporting them to the hilt due to this inherent belief that when Christ returns, we should all pay homage to him. This is a fundamental what they believed, and hence their support for Israel will be strident and very much unshakable. So these are things that people need to be aware of, and what the background scenarios are. So hence, these are some of the things that we need to be bringing to the public's attention. This is very much the US, which is governed a lot upon the biblical narrative, holds this as a firm belief. I mean, what would you say as a journalist from Press TV in regards to that? I'm sure you are aware of this.
I am, but I'm really sorry. I really have to do some box pop.
No, that's fine.
I didn't think this was going to take too long, but I'll say this much. I'm not a religious scholar. I've heard about these things, that even the evangelicals who support the Israelis or the Jews to go to Israel, they're not doing them a favor. They're actually sending them to die, because, like they say, when Jesus returns, then 2/3 of the Jews will have to apparently perish. Something like that. Like I said, I don't know. But it's hard to comment on something like that, because, like I said, I'm not very well versed. But I think if there are serious leaders out there who are seriously seeking peace, there is a way forward. They have to look at people like humans. It's a humanitarian issue in the end. The occupation should come to an end. Apartheid should come to an end. And people have to come forward and be genuine and find solutions and put this conflict to rest once and for all. Because I think it can be done. It was done in South Africa, and it was done in Northern Ireland. Why can't it be done there? It can. I think
It was done in South Africa as well.
it takes leadership.
Yeah.
And that seems to be lacking, both in the Western world and, mind you, in the Arab world, because we've seen these completely impotent Arab leaders not really stepping up to the plate. But again, I'm sure there's a lot happening behind the scenes, back channel diplomacy, that kind of stuff, that we're not privy to. But let's all focus on the fact that people, children, premature children, are dying. And as everybody is here has been chanting for the past hour and a half, ceasefire it out, and let's hope that happens.
Absolutely. We thank you for your sentiments.
No problem,
Very much
man.
appreciated.
Take care.
All the best to you. Thank you
What's
so
your
much.
name?
Mustafa.
Mustafa, it's Saeed.
Saeed, nice to meet you, Saeed.
You
Thank
too,
so
man.
much.